friends, my name is Marines and today I'm going to do a Q&A. A week or two ago I asked on Twitter if anybody had any questions they wanted to ask me because I was interested in filming a Q&A. A few days later I actually hit 8,000 subscribers, which is amazing and wonderful. So it felt like appropriate to do the Q&A now, even though I was kind of already planning to do it anyways, but now it all just ties in together nicely. So on that note, I'm going to read the questions that I got on Twitter and answer as many of them as I can. If I don't get to all of them, I'll save them for a future Q&A video. What is your least favorite book of all time besides Sarah J. Maas and Shatter Me? The books that I hate the very most are the ones that I went into knowing that I was gonna hate them. 50 Shades of Grey, Twilight, and Handbook for Mortals. But I feel like you guys know how I feel about those because of Snark Squad and because of my general penchant for mentioning how much I hate them. Of the books that I didn't read to Snark specifically, just books that I went into thinking that I would enjoy them, there are some that I ended up hating. One is Fallen by Lauren Kate, which I read around the time that the last installment in the series came out and there was a lot of hype surrounding it, and I went into it and nobody told me that it was basically Twilight with fallen angels. And another is Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick, which if I recall correctly had some element of a girl falling in love with a guy who kidnapped her. What is one book you'll never stop recommending and why? I'm gonna thank Brie and this question for allowing me the opportunity to once again talk about the Fairyland series by Catherine M. Valente. I love it. I've talked about it so much. I've even recommended it to people who didn't love it as much as I do, but I keep recommending it because I feel like when it lands for somebody, when it's something that is within their wheelhouse, it has the potential to be an extreme magical favorite like it is for me. I think that it is beautifully written. I think it is so smart, so lovely. It explores some themes that are just very close to my heart, has some of my favorite characters of all time, has a wonderful beginning and a super strong end. So I will just keep talking about my love for this series forever. What is your favorite line in Shatter Me? Let's do a top 3. Number 3, he says it with a small smile the size of Jupiter. Number 2, my jaw is dangling from my shoelace. Number 1, Warner thinks Adam is a cardboard cutout of vanilla regurgitations. Name your top 3 favorite characters in Twilight besides Edward. Number 3, Leah, because I feel like she hates everyone almost as much as I do. Number 2, Jacob's wig in the first movie. Number 1, Bella's truck, which we called the Wow free truck, because in the first book when her father gives her the truck for free, she goes, wow. Free. Thanks for the questions, Joss. Do you have a favorite book to movie TV adaptation, and why is it your favorite adaptation? My favorite is hands down the BBC miniseries version of Pride and Prejudice. I think it's my favorite because by virtue of being a miniseries, it has the room to really do the source material justice. Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite books of all time, and I feel like I appreciate this adaptation because it is such a strict adaptation. It's my go-to thing to watch when I'm feeling down or when I'm sick. If I'm spending some hours on the couch and I really don't have the mental capacity to engage with something new, the BBC miniseries version of Pride and Prejudice is what I will play all the time. I love it now with almost like an irrational love. It's the love that grows for a thing where you stop being able to talk about it in any kind of critical manner, not to criticize necessarily, but just even saying why you love it. Like the love is such a given for me now for both the book, the novel, and for the adaptation that it's just kind of like, I don't know, I just do. In general though, I'm trash for any classics to TV or movie adaptations. I'll watch any of the Pride and Prejudices, including the 1980s version. I love the Persuasion adaptations. I love Sense and Sensibility. I love North and South. I love Mansfield Park. I love all of the Jane Eyres. Outside of those, I thought that the Hunger Games adaptations were really well done and very smart about how they adapted for a different medium and what they chose to cut and what they chose to keep. I also watched all of the Harry Potter movies before I ever read the books intentionally, so I have a soft spot for the Harry Potter movies. Are there any movie adaptations you've liked more than the book it was based on? I like the Big Fish movie more than Big Fish by Daniel Wallace, and I like Stardust, the movie, more than Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I will say that in both of those cases, I consumed the movies before I read the books, and I think that really does have a lot to do with how you engage with the material, because I've read things about the Stardust movie and how people didn't appreciate it as an adaptation, but I loved it. And when I went back and read, I love Neil Gaiman, so I enjoyed the book, but there was something magical about the movie and about how it portrayed the characters versus how I found them in the book that, I don't know, I thought that the movie was a little bit more engaging. Also, I will say that I hate the Twilight films, but they're not good. They're not good. But I will say that I think that they're so much better than the books by virtue of being parsed down and by being so much out of Bella's head. We don't get her constant running commentary, and the writers did their best to infuse the movies with some semblance of a plot. And I think because you take what is the book and all of these pages and pages of rambling, and then the last, like, let's say 15% of chunk of the book is what contains the plot, they take that and they kind of spread it out over the movie. So I think by just virtue of the medium, the Twilight movies are better than the Twilight books, even if they both suck. What book to movie adaptation did you hate the most and why, if any? I really hated The Golden Compass. I read the books as an adult and I was warned not to watch the movie, but I couldn't help myself, and by the time that I got to the ending and the way that they changed it and how it fundamentally changed the story for me, I hated it. Also, I gave City of Bones, the book by Cassandra Clare, 1 out of 5 stars, so I was not a fan of it at all, and even I think that the movie did not do it justice. There was some magic that was lost in the adaptation. I think maybe it took itself a little bit too seriously, and I think the book steers clear of that. It's not good, but there is a certain amount of humor, especially between the characters, that keeps it a little lighter than these adaptations seem to be doing. The adaptations seem to want to put a little bit more seriousness into it, and I honestly don't think that the plot and the characters, such as they are, can really withstand that. Also, how is your cat? This is my cat Diesel, and I got her in May of this year when she was just a few weeks old. She was found, so I adopted her. She is freaking growing like a weed. Her body is huge and she still has a small little kitten face, which I think is adorable. She's also a giant pain in the butt. She's such a pain in the butt. Say hi, Diesel. Diesel, say hi. Diesel, look at the camera. Diesel, don't be a jerk. Look at the camera. How do you feel your BookTube channel has evolved over time, and where do you see your channel and BookTube in general going? I think the evolution has to do with a couple of things. One is definitely comfort in front of the camera and just the ease with which I can do this now compared to the beginning. That said, I think the biggest change over the last few years on BookTube is the way that the pressure starts to ease up. I think a lot of people experience that when they first join BookTube, you think a lot about what is successful here, what other people do. There's a pressure to read certain things, or maybe not pressure in terms of like feeling like you need to, but you get engrossed in the community and you start kind of flowing with them in terms of what is everybody talking about, what is everybody excited about, what is everybody doing, what's the latest new thing. And it's a way of feeling like you belong, which is great, and it's how a lot of us find community, is by participating and going along with those things. But it can, if done too much, or if you focus too much on that, it can create a certain kind of pressure. So I feel like in finding your voice and carving out your space and deciding what kind of things you want to do on BookTube, that pressure eases up, and I know that that's true for me. I think that a lot of why I tend to have way more views versus subscribers, like a lot of people watch my videos and never subscribe. So I think a lot of that is because I don't have a niche and I read very widely. And so at one point that was kind of bothering me, and I was trying to force myself to read in a way that was a little more popular, but then I wasn't happy. So just coming to terms with me reading widely and one, video talking about a super bad but popular, thing or YA thing or whatever, and then talking about some nonfiction that I read or graphic novels, like that's what I enjoy, and it might never have the reach or the audience that other people do, but you come to terms with that, or at least, you hope you do, or I have, as my channel has evolved and as I've spent more time on here. As for the future of this channel, I've had a lot of ideas. I would love to branch out into more informational and educational videos along with everything else that I do that probably won't change in the near future. I love making reviews and discussion videos and talking about a lot of different kinds of books and media, but I would also like to talk a little more educationally, whether that's about tropes that directly affect the Latinx community, or whether that's about how to read critically, how do you consume critically, and how did I kind of find my way to the way that I read and I review, or even about things like classics and taking a look at something like Pride and Prejudice and the different iterations and what they all bring to the table. As for where BookTube is going in general, I'm not sure that I know. I don't know if I've been here long enough to see the natural ebb and flow of how things work in this community. I don't know that I can predict what's coming next, but I can only hope that this community is around for a good long time. Can you usually tell halfway through a book what ballpark rating you will give it, or do you have to reflect once it's all over? I would say for the most part, I usually have an idea about halfway how I'm going to rate it. That may change from halfway to the end, but for the most part, I have a good idea how the experience is going for me, and by the time I close the book, I can think, okay, that was a blank star read. Every once in a while, there is a book that really has to settle into my feelings before I can rate it. These are usually books that made me feel things very strongly, or that had good and bad parts, or that had complex narratives or things of that nature. A recent example is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I finished that book and I didn't really know how to end it because it had really great parts, some weaker parts, but it made me feel things very strongly, and some of the characters I liked, some of the characters I really didn't like, so it was so all over the place that I wasn't sure what to rate it once I left the book. Who are the smaller booktubers you would like and recommend? For the purposes of this question, I considered smaller anybody smaller than I am, anyone with a channel with less subscribers than I have. We talked about at YALLFest again how hard it is to really quantify who's small, medium, and large within the book community, because BookTube in general is just way smaller than YouTube at large. So kind of defining those is always really difficult for me. So I just thought this was a safe way to go. I'll include all of their channel links down in the description, but I'm gonna recommend Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, Caitlin from Book Chats, Juan from Just One Reader, Karen May, Wolf's Whistle, Sylvia from Wish Fulfillment, and Vanessa from Split Reads. What are some of the elements of BookTube that have made you consider leaving, and what are the elements that help you stay? As I mentioned before, I think there are things that we, or a lot of us, struggle with that come just from being within a community and being on a platform that kind of measures you against other people's success. Those are the kinds of things that sometimes have discouraged me, along with lack of time and just, you know, the general things that kind of get you down sometimes on the things that you're making. Those things discouraged me, but the only thing that I can say has ever made me want to quit entirely has been rude or racist comments from people. To this day, if I have a new comment on an old video, there is a 75% chance that it's something racist that somebody has said about me just because they saw like my brown face on a video. I don't know. I can't explain it to you. Those things are hard to deal with, especially if you're having like a bad day otherwise, and then you open your email and there's like this thing about you as a person from somebody you don't even know about, and you're just making videos about books. The other thing though is that when things like that happen, or when I've been engaged in conversations about representation or diversity, the lack of support or the ignorant or willfully harmful comments that people that I consider that are within this community have made, and the way that that can feel isolating, or, you know, just that lack of support in those instances made me take a break, and I didn't know if I was going to come back, and have really been the only thing that threatened to kind of send me off entirely. What keeps me here is that I really enjoy making things. I enjoy making these videos. I enjoy talking about books, and I have friends here, and I have really big ideas, and I have like goals for my channel and for the community through BookNet Fest, and there are things that I really want to accomplish. So, and I really want this to be a space where what I go through sometimes doesn't happen to other people. So working towards that, and you know, this is a hobby. I enjoy doing it, which I think is at the foundation of everything that I do and why I keep making these videos. So that's encouraging, and I really do have a nice supportive group of friends that I found now, that even when I feel like the larger community might not be there for me or for the marginalized, that I have this group of people that I can then vent to, and that I can can feel support from. I'm gonna cut the questions off there. I think I have about 10 more that I need to answer, so I will do that at a future date. Feel free to ask me any questions about reviewing, about books, about any other media, about Snark Squad, about Booknet Fest, about my life, about whatever. As long as you're nice and respectful, I don't mind any of those kinds of questions. So feel free to leave them down below and I can do this again. Thanks to everybody who asked questions. That was awesome because I've tried this before and had not a lot of success, so I appreciate you. And thanks again for 8,000 subscribers. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching this video and I will see you guys soon. This is my cat Diesel. This is my cat Diesel. She's not showing up in the frame. Diesel. Look. Diesel, look. Diesel, look.